Anyway, whatever. We're in the next part now, right? We're still busy talking about my story from not university, from go. I'm very distracted. There's just so much movement and I can't stand my lack of privacy. Everything just hurts in my life. Plus, I need to speak really quickly because I cannot miss exercise. It's Monday, so the sooner we get this done, the better. I spoke about how in the previous part I was so depressed because I did not have a life. I was the girl that was basically predestined just based on speculation alone, or forecast based on speculation alone to be very, very successful. And here it is that at the very beginning of my attempt at gaining success, basically out of high school, I was put ko Soweto, ko Kasi, gathering dust. I was in the ghetto, being typical, just being a young person, loitering the hood and not doing anything relevant with their lives, and it really used to break my heart. However, and irrespective of all that, God had always gone before. He gave me providers. He gave me people that took care of me when the primary source of my caregiving had basically abandoned her duties. She walked in a dereliction of duty of her mothering of me. My mom derelicted her duties as a mother to me, and she keeps doing that. To this day, it is still a thing that she is doing. She suffered severely. We get it from postpartum depression, but at what point are you going to snap out of it? We get that my dad was a deadbeat that I look like, that you can't stand, and so for those reasons, when you look at me, you see him, and so you just want to bash it into a wall. But those are the kinds of things that you go to therapy for, to overcome, so you don't abuse your child because of your PTSD thanks to a bad man. Nonetheless, whatever, this woman who has walked in a dereliction of duties, God went before and gave me other forces, other people that came into my life, and largely they were children, like other kids like me. My friends fed me throughout high school. They gave me little pocket monies throughout high school. I still owe them to this day. I had another one that used to buy me KFC every single day. My cousin was the one who got after school. When her dad would give her pocket money after school, she would bring me some little delectables from school. And also I also used to smoke cigarettes, which was something that I shouldn't have done, but she was the one who got loose type thing, because next time I didn't have money, and they never ever made me, not only my cousin but her boyfriend too, basically was catering to both his girlfriend and me type thing, and they never really complained. They never cried about it. There was never like a whole karabo wa reja chelete and rebanyane ko yena. It's nonsense. They never made me feel any kind of way, so thank God for that. Shouldn't have been smoking. That's what's good. However, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's always been somebody, if at all there was a violence of a dereliction of duties on the part of my mom, there's always been somebody taking up those reins on my behalf. There's always been somebody. Even my ex-boyfriend at some point had to take on the responsibility of taking care of me after my mom kicked me out of home. Even though his parents were very much against the prospect of us living together, due to the fact that we had to first be married type thing. He convinced his parents, or he basically went against the will of his parents on some, but like, if I don't move in with Karabo, she doesn't have a strong enough salary on her own to live in an apartment. Oto dula guy. And so they basically all just agreed on some fine, rent no karabo type thing, but you guys are married, blah blah blah. So there's always been somebody that, upon this woman walking in a particular irresponsibility, always just kind of picked up for me temporarily the reins. Do you understand? Even though these individuals ultimately betrayed me, and also even though these individuals, it was within capacities that were unhealthy in the sight of a holy God. Fat and sitting is a sin in the sight of God. Cigarette smoking is a sin in the sight of God. Nonetheless, given that I was supposed to be kept minimally alive, just at a minimum alive, up until a certain point where I would lean entirely on God, turn my life over to Him, they kept me safe. I get after my mom kicked me out of home, if at all I did not band together with my boyfriend at the time and get an apartment, the two of us. That's what I'm saying. They kept me minimally alive because God had a job for me somewhere along the way. Evidence of Romans 8:28, all things work out together for the good of them who love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. He called me, He predestinated me, He called me, He fashioned me, justified me, ultimately will glorify me. All of these things work in a providential ecosystem to ultimately bring the disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ to the place where they need to be. I ultimately subdued myself under his mercy, and that's when then everything was taken over by God. there's so many stories, guys, that I've told you guys where it is that like people who were supposed to take care of me, when they dropped the ball, somebody else stepped in. I told you about the time when I was left alone in a club. My cousin left me. She and her boyfriend were the ones in whose transportation I was, and they left me at a club because I was making out with some guy in a corner. And miraculously, one of my cousin's ex-boyfriends was there with us that same night at the club, and he was driving with a whole bunch of his boys, and he was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they left you. And I went home with them, and in the morning I took taxis and went home. I could have been just abandoned, go Serengeti nightclub, Marlboro, or like to even drive home, not to even take taxis home. I was like literally on 0 rands. I had nothing. That guy's the one that gave me money to take taxis to go home the next morning type thing. There's always been somebody that like as through a dustpan, because the people that tossed me to the side like rubbish to some other person in the ecosystem. Like the presence of God, the footprint, the palm of God has always just been around in my life until I finally became responsible enough to stop putting myself in harm's way. So my little cousin was that provision for me, and her boyfriend at the time when I was 20, they were both younger than me. They were just kids in high school, and here it is that they were taking care of an unemployed, sitting at home random vagrant in the Gasi. And they also emotionally kind of dressed my wounds in that, they made me feel better about life instead of me being so sad. And the capoeira really also went a long way. The recreational activity of exercising capoeira, it also went a really long way. We basically made fun. We created an itinerary around my sorrow, and it worked for me. It really did ultimately eradicate a lot of my pain. I was in so much sorrow that I was extremely suicidal, to a point even of going to go and get an HIV test, and if at all it came positive, I was determined to commit suicide. I wanted an excuse. I spoke about that in the earlier part. Okay, yeah, very well. So this season was very depressing for me, and one time, the way that I was so desperate for a job, I once even called a advert and in the workplace that said that looking for young girls 18 and up to do massage. Yo, guys, when I told my cousin about this, she laughed at me. The one that was my best friend, we were not entirely I'm not speaking, but she was weird towards me. I thought that this was just me being trained to be a masseuse, and that was it. I went there only to find out that it was a brothel. It was a brothel. I was freaking out, shocked out of my mind. As soon as I got there, if anything, when I arrived there, I went into this house, and all the cars, it was some house that was like in the northern suburbs in Bryanston of Johannesburg. The cars that were driving past kept on looking at me strangely when I was knocking or pressing the alarm bell at this house. And I was like, why are the cars looking at me funny? I'm just like coming to an interview spot. Anyway, I get in, and everything looked more or less normal until I saw in the lounge where I was waiting basically to be seen, a woman walking around in a G-string, and I was like, my goodness, like, put some clothes on. Ultimately, some girl came to pick me up on some, come and sit with me while we wait, because we don't want you just loitering around in the in the foyer, because that's where you're gonna get to see like celebrities, you're gonna see members of parliament and whatnot. So they did not want me seeing any such thing. When I was sitting with this girl in her bedroom, and it looked like a regular bedroom with like posters of her celebrity crush on the wall, nothing like suspect. I then made a decision, since I saw the chick with the G-string in the lounge, in the foyer, in the main sort of kind of reception area. I asked this girl, I was like, oh, so you guys do massages over here? Is it just massages? And then she was like, it's massage and sex. That's when I freaked out. I was like, I'm not trying to be that, no offense to you or whatever. And she's like, it's okay. You're not the first girl to come here and be shocked at the combination of things that we do here. They should be more transparent in the advertisement. You're not the first girl to come here and leave as soon as you find out what in the world it is that we're doing. So then I ended up, one of the guys, the pimps who worked at this place, when I told him I don't want to do this thing, like I did not know that this is what under heaven it is, that he was like, it's okay, relax, like there's no issue, nobody's gonna give you pressure. So it was like, it could have been maybe like 4 p.m. in the afternoon at this point when I made this discovery, and this guy was like, you know what, was sorry for inconvenience. Like I literally got such golden treatment from pimps and brothel owners. That's what I'm trying to explain to you guys, that God has always just been with me. Like this guy, I could have just gone outside and taken a taxi in Nyakomba, gone home to Soweto. He asked me, where do you stay? I was like, I live in Soweto, type establishment thing. He's like, okay, if you don't mind waiting for an hour, our driver is gonna come back from dropping off a client. He will take you all the way to Soweto where you stay. And I was like, oh, okay. And indeed the driver was this like elderly man, could have been like maybe 60, 63, and he drove me home. And as he was driving me home, he was like, yo, Tanam, it's a good thing ukuthi hamba le ndawo le ayikho right. Mina umsebenzi nje fela for me, but I feel sorry for the girls who are there. Like I had two like very like cordial pimps treat me like a queen, give me juice and everything while I waited for transportation to go home. They did not feel any kind of way, and they did not want to coerce me. They were not even trying to traffic me. Yeah, proper. And yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I went through. The Lord knew that I would find myself in a brothel, thanks to being so desperate for a job that I went on right ahead and made a phone call to some advert that said looking for masseuses from 18 up, and I thought that it's nothing much. And when I got there, I found it was a brothel. And at the brothel, once they knew that I was not trying to be a prostitute, they treated me like a queen and got me driven home. These are the kinds of things that I have experienced in my life. And when I told my cousin, she was laughing. It became a little bit of a joke that we made every so often afterwards, but that's what I had to go through. That's how much God went before. That's how much he protected me. That's how much he covered me. That's how much he catered to me. He made sure that even pimps treat me well. That's what you guys need to understand. Yeah, anyway, whatever. So during that season, I kept on going from job to job. Call. And when I would call, I found out that it's called, some places that I would go to the interview of, I would find out that it's sales and it's commission based only, and I knew that I was never going to make money that way. And the only one that I did finally take up, where it was a cold calling to go and sell some products, they were paying a basic that I was happy with. I think the basic was something like 5,000 rands with commission, but unfortunately I could only go there for 2 weeks, following which I had to stop going because of the fact that I didn't have money. I was given I was given 600 rands a month, and if and even going to work was not reason enough for my mom to send me more money. It was not reason enough. So I ended up basically losing a job because I couldn't go anymore. So stuff like that caused me so much macabre, so much melancholy, so much depression, that ultimately I was like, I can't do this anymore. After like 6 months, eventually I got into one of the jobs that I called into, one of the many advertisements that were put in the workplace that I called into was Liberty Life. It was Liberty Life. And at Liberty Life, when I called them, they interviewed me on the phone, liked me, told me to write in an essay. I wrote it. I went to an internet cafe, and then I faxed it to Liberty Life. They then they got back to me. I believe I had a cell phone, yes, at the time. They called me then for an interview. The first interview was like it was like kids gathering together to see our interpersonal skills, right? I got shortlisted from there. Then it was a psychometric test. I got shortlisted from there, and then after the psychometric test, it was a panel interview. And at that panel interview, that was the last step, right? And at the time when now I was waiting for whatever it is that is the phone call or the letter that I'm gonna get from Liberty Life telling me that you've arrived, you're cool. Yeah, it was such a long time. They made us wait like maybe 2 months, guys. 2 to 3 months. Just khototsi. It was just dead. And during that time, I got so forlorn. I was so depressed. I was starting to get excited that Liberty Life, like I might just get into the learnership. Guys, it just went dead quiet. And during this season, that's when like Satan was like, just do it. That's when suicide was like nothing worked. No comfort from my cousins, nothing. All the other places that I called was still I was still hitting brick walls. I was gathering dust in Soweto. I felt like such a loser. I'd lost friends, by the way. Like my friends from varsity that I was tight with at varsity, they just like cut, like I just like literally, when days are dark, friends are few type thing. It just went dead. Like they were not there for me at all. I had no one but my little cousin and her boyfriend. Like those were the only people I had in my life in terms of peers. And I was like, nothing worked. I was gonna get found dead, guys. I don't know how in the world I was gonna commit suicide, but I was heavily ideating suicide during that time, and it got so tough, it got so terrible. I imagined since Liberty Life dragged its feet to finally call back and say successful interview, I thought they just basically let me go. I thought they, one of those, if they don't call you, it means you don't get the job type thing. I thought that's what was going on over there. Yeah, so then because I got as depressed as I got due to that issue, because I got as depressed as I got due to what appeared to be the failure of getting successfully into the learnership program at Liberty Life, I wanted to die. I wanted to commit suicide. But then during the time when I was busy ideating suicide, thinking that my life is over, I'm not going anywhere, I'm gonna gather dust, go guys, I'm gonna keep on listening to people waking up in the morning, showering, going to work, smelling aerosol spray, smelling the davu, the sepa was saying, and being triggered by the fact that I'm not waking up, I'm not brushing my teeth, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not getting into some clothes and kwai, I'm not commuting, like it got so depressing that I was like, okay, maybe I should kill myself. And that's when God would surface to me. My friend, like when I was in high school, one of my girls, I remember we were talking about suicide. I don't know why we were talking about suicide, but we were talking about suicide. And not that anybody was suicidal, it just became a topic. One time, lunch at school, and my girl, during that time, Honako High School, could have been like grade 11, maybe matric. She was like, if anybody commits suicide, they go to hell. And that stuck to me. It stuck to me. My friend said that thing, and during the time when she said it, we were all like, really? Where did you get that? Is it in the Bible? Where did you find that stuff out? And it was like a whole conversation, whatever. We moved on from it. During the time when I was severely suicidal, every time I would think about doing it, my friend's words came to the top of my mind. That same friend of mine, that same day goes kolonga break where we used to hang out, and she was like, if anybody commits suicide, they go to hell. I remembered her words, and they kept on coming to the surface over and over and over again. They just kept on resurfacing, bubbling. So the first time I wanted to commit suicide, I took an HIV test and as an excuse, thinking that it was going to come out positive, and if it was positive, I was going to have an excuse to kill myself. There it is. God went before, made sure it was negative. When it was negative, I was like, okay, fine, I'll live. I was able to keep myself encouraged for a few months from that date, and then Liberty Life Guatula after that interview, the last interview, and now I didn't even care that I had a clean bill of health. Now nothing mattered. I was just so macabre, I was so depressed that I was ideating it. I was even thinking, what would I do? I didn't even know how I was going to kill myself. I just knew that I didn't want it to be painful. I wanted to be quick. Yeah, at some point I even thought maybe if I could locate a gun, like proper, like where in the world was I going to get a gun? Because I imagined that a gun was super, it was fast, and I'm in the Gasi, I'll just find a gangster, angazi, like, yeah, as in, like, pay him, like, wait for the money that comes in every single month, 600 rand, okay, and just ask him for isbam, and just end my life. Like, yeah, guys, it was so bad. But when my thoughts were running out, guys, I was so depressed that I couldn't sleep. The whole night I was tossing and turning. I would sometimes sob, and the cousin that I was sleeping next to, right, I was sleeping with my cousin in the bed. Yeah, my cousin, the main one, the one that was my best friend. I should have actually slept at night with the other girl, with the other cousin, because she was sweet to me, she was nice. I should have stayed with her, but I insisted on being with this one that was so mean. I would sob, guys, like, and cry, like, audibly at night, and she would just, like, basically turn her body on someone. She was so mean. She was so incredibly mean. It was ridiculous. And she wasn't mean, I won. She everyone that we used to hang out with, the guys, the crew of guys that we used to hang out with, that we used to jive out with, guys, and they all looked at me like I was a loser. It was so weird how everybody just changed on me. Anyway, whatever. That depression, every time I would be rolling in it, unable to sleep, sobbing, crying, having this person next to me act like I'd be like, I just want to die. I want to commit suicide. And I would remember my friend's words. Anybody who commits suicide goes to hell. Well, I later, what do you call this, got saved. And of course, doctrinally, I got to understand things a bit better. So her doctrine on whether or not people who commit suicide go to hell, I can't really say that it's entirely accurate, but to a certain extent I do agree, because what is this? He who endures to the end will be saved. And suicide is not endurance. I've spoken about that for a minute, okay? I have spoken about that before in the past. I'm not going to labor on the theological explanation behind what I believe happens to suicides. I'm not gonna get into it, but that thing that she said saved me, because I wasn't sure if hell existed. I just was, however, convicted in that moment that it might be true, and so I stayed alive. So because of how incredibly depressed I was, to a point of wanting to die, when month end came and my mother sent me money, given that I was on the verge, on the precipice of suicide, I made a decision that, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna go and buy a ticket, get to Park Station in downtown Johannesburg, and buy a Greyhound ticket to KZN, to Durban, and go home where there's better food. I have my own bedroom, and it's my mom's decor, it's her finishes, it's the smell of my mom's perfume. It is just a familiar environment, and I will likely be less depressed, because I cannot stay Mona, because this woman, this chick, Utlong Polaya, by simply being as mean as she is, and this Kasi, this dry, arid Soweto ecosystem, where every morning I gotta wake up feeling like some ghetto rat, some hood rat. Yeah, I was like, I'm not trying to do that. I don't want to feel like some hood rat. So I then decided that I'm gonna go to KwaZulu-Natal, and without telling anybody, I literally packed one small little bag, and I went to Park Station, and I got on a bus without even telling my mother that I'm coming, and I went to Durban. That's what I did. Before I went to Durban, I called my cousin, and I was like, I'm so depressed, and I was crying on the phone. And she was like, oh, why? Oh my goodness, but why? Why? I was like, girl, whatever. Like, I was trying to gain compassion from someone that was treating me like trash. Anyway, whatever. That cousin, I told her to tell her dad that I'm not coming home. And then I went to KZN, and when I arrived, it was night. I called my mother from the bus terminal at KwaZulu-Natal, and I was like, I'm there, please come fetch me. And she was upset at me. She was upset. In Elibusi, who I took her out of her way, she was mean-spirited, cold, aloof. My little sister was in there, and of course she was still a baby, and she was sitting in the back in a baby seat. She was still a baby, my little sister, and my little sister was just being a baby, but my mom was mean. She was mean, and she was cold, and she was upset, not concerned. And that just pushed me over the edge even more. It just made me want to die even more. And when I was now in KZN, I was in a better environment, right? Because it was my mom's house and everything, but I was so far away from my dreams. And it literally nearly pushed me over the edge until I basically begged my mother for help. I told her I was depressed, and then she got me a meeting with some psychologist in Durban that was busy talking to me about how if I don't get the learnership Yako Liberty Life, what am I gonna do? And I was like, it's not an option, I have to get it. I remember telling that shrink, it's not an option, I have to get it, otherwise I'm going to just stay depressed type establishment thing. I needed a job, I needed a way out of that grain, that mold. I had dreams and I wanted to fulfill them, and they were not in KZN. I had a whole life trajectory, I had plans for myself that nobody else seemed to care I had. I wanted a life. I wanted to live. I wanted more. But I was in this rut. And the shrink was scared for me, because she could tell that if at all I didn't get that learnership, she didn't know what I was going to do. What made me ultimately cry out for help to my mom was because one time I opened the bath water in the bathroom, and I wanted to drown myself in there. And yet again, I kept on hearing my friends saying, everybody who commits suicide goes to hell. And so because now I couldn't muster up the bravery to kill myself, because I didn't want to find myself in hell lest this should be true, I then crawled to my mother begging her for help. And only then did she then take me to a shrink. But in the days in the run-up to me going to that shrink, I was busy loitering, walking up and down KwaZulu-Natal, buying little sweets from the local, nearby tuck shop, Naridulako Perea. Yeah, that's what's good. A very quiet neighborhood, at least at the time. And it was a beautiful apartment. It was clean, just like the houses that my mom have always been beautiful and clean. But there was still so much missing. Where was my future? I'm a 20-year-old girl. I want a life. I want a future. I want a future, and I'm just in this dead end. Nobody's even trying to help me. No one is trying to get me a job interview anyway. No one in the family is trying to get, no, actually I'm lying. One cousin of mine tried to get me a call center job at Business Connection where she used to work, but they did not want me. They liked me at the interview, but then they were scared that I was a flight risk because I kept talking about how it is that if at all I want to go back to school. I want to finish my degree. And they were like, if we hire you, are you going to go back to school? And I told them 9 years, I'm still going to go back to school. And so they were like, we can't take you because you're going to quit after like 6 months. We're already 6 months into this year. 2006 is going to come and you're going to go back to Wits University. We need people that are going to stick around. So my cousin did try. My cousin did try for me. Another cousin also tried to get me into a learnership at Old Mutual, but they didn't like my CV. Like, well, it was a high school student, like everybody there was a matriculant. Anyway, whatever. They didn't like my CV, so they didn't take me on board, but Liberty Life did take me on board, right? And Liberty Life was my own effort. I wrote in, I'm the one that called them and everything. So 2 cousins did try to help me, but my mom never tried to place me. No one else tried to place me. My uncle didn't try to place me at his job. No one in the family other than these 2 cousins. And the same 2 cousins, all these years down the line, now they don't care. Like nobody like gives a rat's behind. One of these cousins, the one called Business Connection, in the beginning stage of my sorrow, just as I was entering into all of this pain, she tried to get me a project management job at Investec, and my mom stopped it. Yeah, well, and then later on she became sour. It's like people in my life have been bent, even those that were okay, even the ones that were good were like something about Robile, and then they just all of a sudden were no longer careful for me. Whatever, right? So I nearly fell apart, guys, but then I didn't. Thankfully, one of the days, however, Kingy, it was just so dead quiet at Kingy, this Liberty Life thing. Megutule so much that I was freaking out. I was worried. What in the world is going on? And then one day my aunt calls me. I did so well at the interview that I was certain I got the job, right? One day my aunt calls my mom. And she's like, hey, mother, there's a letter that came in the mail for your daughter. She did not get into the learnership program. Yo, guys, when my mother said that, guys, if I say that the Lord has always been with me, when my mother relayed the message of my aunt to me, I looked at my mother and I was like, it's a lie. I looked at my mom and I was like, it's a lie. My aunt apparently at her, what do you call this? At her residences, they sent, I used her address as the postage address because it was more reliable than my uncle's Kotladi. So for my mail Yako Liberty could only arrive Kotladi. They did not call interviewees to let them know they didn't make it. They sent them a letter. For whatever reason, I guess it was like 2006 back then. They could have just sent an email. It was better that way. Apparently my aunt got a mail in the letter saying that I did not make it, right? And she opened it and read it and told my mom I didn't make it. And when my mom told me this information that I didn't make the learnership program, I was like, it's impossible. I looked at her initially, I was tempted to believe it and cry, but I was like, it's impossible. And literally, I stood there in front of her with a bravery that is almost Holy Spirit-ish, but I was not saved at the time. It's like the Lord spoke to me and said, fight this, because if you don't fight this, Karabo, if you don't fight this, you are going to be expected to rock up on a certain date to basically clock into the program. You're going to be expected to come in as one of the successful interview candidates, as one of the successful learners that are part of this learnership program. You're going to be expected to come in on this particular date of 2006 and of 2005. You're going to be expected to clock in. And you're not going to be there because you will have gotten a letter in the mail that said that you were unsuccessful. That letter is a lie. Like proper, like it's like I was filled by the Holy Spirit, but apart from being born again, I was told by something that fight this. I told my mom, Kimaka, it's impossible. They loved me at the interview. My mom was like, hey Karabo, come on, just take it. I was like, no, I want to find out myself. So I can go and call Liberty Life to ask them what went wrong. I just want to know what went wrong, because I'm pretty sure that there's no way under heaven I didn't make it into that learnership. My mom was like, I know a couple of people at Liberty Life. I'll ask on your behalf, it's fine. She went to work that same evening. She came home. She was like, it was a mistake. They sent your letter. They sent you an unsuccessful letter. Because your name, Karabo, there was something like 3 Karabos at the learnership at the time, like the psychometric level before the interview. There were 3 Karabos, 1 guy, 2 girls. 2 girls made it. Karabo, the girls, me and another Karabo female made it, but the boy didn't make it. right? And they mixed up the karabos. They sent that boy's letter to me thinking it's that boy. And I don't think he got a successful letter, like you've made it or whatever, but they basically discombobulated our names. In that it was like Karabo, let's say his name was Shabalala. Karabo Shabalala was the one that was not supposed to make it, but Karabo Hlongwane was the one that made it. And they sent a letter to Karabo Hlongwane instead of Shabalala. That's what happened. They sent a letter to Hlongwane instead of Shabalala. They made a mix-up. And if I had believed that mix-up, with Usatani, when somebody's called of God, if at all I had believed the mix-up, I would have just sat there crying, moping, sobbing. Do you understand? And on the date of reporting in for duty, I would not have gone, and they would have expected me, and then cancelled my name off a roster, and likely called some other student to come in and fill my vacancy, or just gone without the extra student. I not only made it into the learnership, but I also made it into the most, almost like the protege kids, the ones who were really gifted. They put them in a learnership group called consultants, in order to make us consultants. Yeah, in the future. They chose the smart kids for that. Everybody else, they were gonna be put in like administration of policies and blah blah etc. But the ones that they wanted to build to become broker consultants, it was a special gift of kids. And we were the smallest class. We were the smallest little class, and they wanted to train us up to see if we can't become that. And I was chosen for the consultants, and I would not have rocked up for duty. I wouldn't have pitched, you guys. I wouldn't have gone in. I would not have gone in if I did not stand and ultimately get my mom to a point where she was like, fine, I'll make a few calls. And when she called, she found out that they mixed things up. And then that's when then celebrations happened. And during the day when I was waiting for my mom to come home, I wasn't even anxious. It's like I just knew that there was no way I did not make it into that program. I just knew. But on the day when I went for the last interview at Liberty Life, the one that basically would seal the deal as to whether or not we're gonna get in there, when I went to that interview, my cousin Una, she took my clothes, and she had worn my clothes and not washed them and treated them like trash and burned them with cigarettes or whatever. Like, she was just messing up because and so she was basically plundering me. She was looting the living daylights out of me. You will recall I went to KZN and I took just one bag. I didn't take all my clothes because I couldn't have traveled with all those clothes by myself in a taxi, go park station. I was gonna go back and fetch them. I left my clothes go habona. And she went and grabbed some of my designer clothes. My older sister used to study overseas, and she would bring me a whole bunch of Dolce & Gabbana and Donna Karan. She used to study in Italy, and then she later moved to America. And she would come back and having bought me designer perfumes, designer clothes, designer shoes, Puma sneakers, Nike like track pants, and yeah, my sister bought me lots and lots of designer clothes. So when I was a teenager, I used to dress like no man's business, and so too when I was in my university years, because my sister used to buy me these very expensive clothes overseas, and a whole bunch of all of that designer gear was chilling while I was away, right, in KZN, awaiting verdict on whether or not I made it into the leadership program. Not whether or not I made it, yes, whether or not I made it into, yes, I had gone to KZN awaiting verdict, right, leaving my clothes behind. I then sent there was a day when I was about to go to Liberty Life, and I don't know what in the world I was going there to do. Was it the last interview or what? But it was not yet confirmed that I made it in that program. And I contacted my cousin when I came back, and I discovered that my clothes were basically just massacred like that. Okay, I discovered that my clothes were massacred. I sent her a text message, and I was like, how could you do this to my clothes? You couldn't even have the decency to wash them. Look at what you did to my top. And you know that my sister bought it for me when she was in Italy. It's a Donna Karan, like you can't just treat skipa sakajwalo type thing. And her response, instead of saying I'm sorry, I should have taken better care of your clothing, she was like, you're just bitter because your life is effed up. You're just bitter because your life is effed up. What in the world? That's the bitterness that chick had always held in her heart. That's the rubbish that she has always held in her heart for me. She was like, you're just bitter because your life is effed up. And I responded to her. I remember at the time when I was responding to her, I was literally looking at Libridge. It is like Liberty Life is this building in downtown Joburg, and it's made up of like two buildings, one on the left and one on the right, and there's a street that separates these two buildings, and there is a bridge that connects them, and that bridge is called Libridge. Okay, I was standing looking up at Libridge. I was about to go into Liberty Life to either collect my pack to start the learnership or to interview, my last interview. But I was sending her this text message while looking up at Lib Bridge, about to go into Liberty Life. And something told me that I'm going to make this learnership. I'm going to succeed. And before I went in, she responds to me telling me, you're just bitter because your life is effed up. And after she sent this to me, my response to her was, when a person is down, the only place they can go is up. I said to her, when a person is down at the very bottom on the floor, the only place that they can ever possibly go is up. That was my response to her. Lo and behold, a couple of weeks down the line from that date, I get a call telling me I'm successful in that particular interview. My career was started from there. I was boosted from that place, and the rest is history. From there, I was indeed able to take myself back to school. From there, I was indeed able to start a career in corporate South Africa. And with the learnership program, did not pay much. My cousin used to earn something stupid like 5,000 rands a month on that receptionist job of hers. This learnership at Liberty Life gave us an allowance, and she got 3,000 rands every single month. And the next job that I got from there was a call center job where they were paying me 6,500 rands in a month. So basically, in a year and a half, I was already making ever so marginally more than my cousin. And within 2 years, I was making something like quadruple her. I just flew right past her. I flew. So basically that text message came to pass. Whenever a person is at their lowliest, when they're super down, the only place that they can go is up. And shortly afterwards, I got successfully interviewed. And now I was at Liberty Life. And now I ended up living for 5 seconds. Back again, Kotladi, Kosoweto, where they stayed because my mom was in KZN. So basically, my strategy worked. Remember, I did not want to live anywhere else not Johannesburg, sorry, but like South Africa, other than in Gauteng, because it was the economic hub of the country. If I was going to get my first job, it had to be in Johannesburg. I was not leaving Johannesburg. Otherwise, it was going to set me up for failure. And not only did God Almighty get me a job in Johannesburg, he got me one close to my school, Wits. Liberty Life is right opposite Wits, but where it is that I was only able to go to school after like a year because I had to first pay off my fees. Got the 3,000 rand actually, during the time when I was in the leadership program, I could not pay my fees because I didn't have anything. But then my first job where I was earning 6,000 rands, I dedicated like a chunk, like 2,000 rands of my barely there salary to paying off my fees. And at the end of the year, when I had not paid off my fees, I took out a personal loan and I finished my fees off and used some of that personal loan to register again the next year go Wits. And then I would go on right ahead to pay off that personal loan too. I took myself back to school within a year of being permanently employed. The first job that I got that was a permanent job was a job in short-term insurance, not even long-term, even though Liberty Life is long-term. It was a claims consultant. I was a call center agent at a company called Teleshore. They liked me, they loved me. The learnership program at Liberty Life boosted me on, and I got into that job, and it was in what do you call this? Mill Park, around there, which is basically like one little taxi to Wits. It's nothing. It's like the taxis to go home, go Mill Park. You just take that taxi from Hotline and from Teleshore, that building, that glass building in Auckland Park. It's not Mill Park. It's in Auckland Park. In Auckland Park, they automatically just go to Bree and what do you call this? And Nord, but before they get to Bree, they pass by Wits University. So it was one little taxi to get to school, type establishment thing. But then after that job, I was there only for like 7 months. I didn't last very long because I wanted more and I wanted money. I then got a job promotion, an increase in salary at Bokoko Netbank, and the call center thing in Eliko Brampark. And Brampark is in Braamfontein, which was a walking distance to Wits. God, everything worked out for me. All things worked together for my good even before I knew him. Because Brampark was in Braamfontein and a walking distance to my school, I therefore did not have qualms or issues with getting to school. I did not have issues with getting to school without a car. At the time, I didn't have a vehicle yet. I did not have issues with getting to school. And my boyfriend, which I had met in that whole time, somewhere along the way, I met my boyfriend. Again, we used to like hang out and eat lunch together. Like, he used to work for Liberty Life and I worked for Brampark Netbank, whatnot. The two of us would like have lunch every single day, and that boyfriend of mine would be the guy that when my mom decides to kick me out of home, gets not anywhere to go, he would then like basically step up and be like, okay, you and I will band together and we will live in an apartment. So even though I was not supposed to be fornicating or being with boyfriends, he had to come into my life for such a time as that. He had to come. And so the two of us got super tight because we worked like right next to each other. He worked in Liberty Life, I worked go Brampak. And we used to see each other every day without fail. And then he would walk me to school and then go on right ahead to take taxis and go home. And a year to a year and a half of our relationship in, when we were close enough, tight enough, having seen each other almost every single day ever since we started dating, we were tight enough for him to see it as a feasible option for him to move in with his girlfriend. And that's when my mom kicked me out of home. So God has always just like gone before to make sure that I am at a minimum alive, at a minimum safe, at a minimum ensconced, like basically put in an environment where it is that taken out of environments where I would have been put in permanent harm's way. Yeah, so everything worked out for me. And when then I got like a real boost in my career, my first real like well-paying job, it was all the way in Hatfield, Pretoria, but it came just at the time. I remember when I was working at the call center, go Brampak, go Nedbank, I had this colleague, and the two of us were so ambitious for cars. We wanted our first cars. She wanted a Renault Clio, and I wanted either a Peugeot 206 or 207 or a Mazda 2. I ultimately got a Mazda 2. I still have a Mazda 2 still to this day. And Nedbank offered some pretty hot deals for staff. And so the two of us were like, it's now or never. It's now or never. It's now or never. So we both were really just kind of investigating getting cars, and they had like a staff process for getting us vehicle HP loans, basically car loans. You know how you get a home loan and then you get a car loan? Yeah. They were helping staff along, and one guy negotiated a deal for me. Mazda 2, and the Mazda 2 came out tops. It came out better, and the person who worked at Mazda was just so influential that they convinced me to rather get a Mazda instead of a Peugeot 207 or a Peugeot 206. And it was ideal because where's Peugeot 206 and 7 now? Where is that? Where are those cars? Like, it's like they're nowhere to be found. Like, I don't know when. I've never seen a Peugeot 206 or 207 on the roads whenever I go to Clearwater. Even an old school one, I can be born it, but Mazda 2s are all over the show because the car has longevity. It has stayed in the market, and it is still selling like hotcakes still to this day. So basically maintenance for it and parts for it are still available. But Peugeot, if I had gotten a Peugeot in the situation that I'm in right now, my car would be sitting because I would have struggled to get parts. I would have struggled to get it serviced. I would have struggled to get it done, all different kinds of things in sorrow, in solitude. But a Mazda 206, 2 whatever, a Mazda 2, like there are so many of them on the road, and they're still selling them brand spanking new to this day, that I would never have struggled or wanted for cheap labor in that regard, because the car is so ubiquitously mass produced in the country still. So my choice even for a Mazda 2 was God's plan for the future, knowing that this is going to be your first car that you're going to buy, and you're not going to get another one for decades. You're not going to get another one for decades. You're going to get a Mazda 2, and at almost 40, you're still going to be driving that car. It is still going to be the only car that you've ever owned. You're going to pay it off, and after paying it off, you're going to lose everything. Also, I paid off my car a year before I lost my job. My job at MTN, I paid off my car in full a year before then. So by the time I lost everything, there was no possibility for the repossession of my car. It's like everything just fell into place like neat little ducks in a row. That's what God did for me. So my Mazda's still sitting outside, and it's still it's perfectly mobile. Only issue is that I've got a biscuit tire that I need to replace with a proper tire, but I don't have money right now. Nonetheless, my car moves and it's not going anywhere. It might be falling apart. I have the lamp that you switch on, mohudimu, to see it around is also kind of dangling, but everything else works. Everything of my vehicle works. It has kept me safe. It has made sure that I have a car even when everything of mine falls apart. That's what God has done to preserve me, to take care of me. He had planned this thing from eternity past. He had foreordained and predestinated this particular thing, even this job that I'm doing now, these chat sessions that I'm having with you guys. Everything I am doing was predestinated for me to do it in advance. So everyone that stabbed me in the back, you messed up with the wrong girl. Is that basic? You were used by God for my benefit, and then you turned your backs on me, making my testimony a painful one instead of one that would bring fresh, beautiful nostalgia. My cousin shouldn't have turned her back on me in favor of her sister, because back in the day she made the right choice to stand with me because she saw that her sister was messed up, but then she turned her back on me, and now we don't have that relationship. She was not here to put salve on my open wounds during the time when her sister was treating me like trash. But that's just the thing. When a person comes to Christ, the world acts funny around them. The world hates disciples. My cousin made the right choice, the one that tried to get me a job through Business Connection, and then later through Investec once I had lost my job at MTN. Now she's changed and flipped on me. She's gonna regret her initial desire to help me along. Otlo regreta. The cousin wako old mutual who turned on me, who tried to help me get into our organization and a learnership too, she's gonna regret not being here for me during this particular season. Once upon a time, God used her, and now she's no longer usable because everyone has turned their back on me. No one is here to put, salvnyana into my open wounds. Now I am a lone ranger surviving all by myself with no comfort, but guess who I have? The rock of all of ages. Now I've got the Ancient of Days. Now I have got Jesus Christ. I've got the Lord on high, and he is the be-all and end-all of a comforter. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Everybody that I lost, nothing compares to Jesus. He is God. He propitiates for the sins of mankind. And so therefore, when I lose 10,000 friends, Christ is enough, for he is God. He is eternal. So the loss of my cousin is in Christ recompensed. The loss of my other two cousins, Wako Old Mutual, Wako Business Connection, in Christ they're recompensed. The loss of my cousin's boyfriend, the support, recompensed. The loss of my ex-boyfriend's support, in Christ, recompensed. The loss of my mother's dereliction of duties, in Christ, recompensed. The loss of Yana cousin one thing that dropped the ball on me, acting a fool, wearing my Donna Karen clothes, in Christ, recompensed. In Jesus Christ, all of those losses have been accounted for. They've been calculated. Everybody that took care of me, everyone, like even the brothel, the staff members at the brothel that treated me like a dignified woman in the wrong environment, to a point of getting a driver to drive me home and make sure that I am safe. Now today, brothels are thoroughly trying to get me to be one of them little prostitutes. Now today, brothels don't care that I am a woman that is misplaced and ought not be put in an environment that is so compromised, given that I'm not that kind of girl. Now they would love to traffic me and make me work for them. Men are trying to desecrate my chastity, my virtue. They are trying to steal that which I am waiting. Now I am more pious, more godlier, more dignified, therefore, than I was even back then. And if at all lost in the world, men, pimps in a brothel, could treat me like a dignified woman and get me dropped off at home, safe, and say, yes, you don't belong here. Why, now that I am in Christ, are the same pimps on some garabu, you have nothing else, just work for the brothel, just braid your legs, why don't you just sleep your way to the top? Why is nobody seeing that I am a 20-year-old girl, a 19-year-old girl that is in the wrong place, and what she needs is to be dropped off at home safe and sound? Don't even let her get on a taxi. That same level of care that I had from pimps. Now today, the same pimps are trying to get me to work for their organizations, even though my chastity, my virtue is stark. It is clear. Men are trying to make me mistresses, for crying out loud, when before a man was prepared to disregard what his parents had to say and his own convictions about what he wanted to do in life, because I was put in harm's way by a mother that kept me out of home. And he was like, you're gonna be safe. The two of us will band together. Acted a fool when we were living together. It could not work. That's what's good. Ultimately, that relationship ended, but he was a lot soberer, more sober, my ex-boyfriend back then than now. I have been covered and protected. There was a time at MTN when, upon coming back from Wits, I refused, for whatever reason, I could hear my car sounded funny when I was hitting the brakes. And I did not go and get it checked out at the car clinic fast enough. And one day when I was driving back from Wits, G stopped on Hendrik Potgieter. My car just G stopped, on Hendrik. So thank God it did not stop anywhere else. It did not stop on Ndeka in some crazy neighborhood. It stopped on Hendrik Potgieter, not far from the Mazda dealership. And I sent, I was working for MTN at the time. So I sent a status update on Facebook on some guys I'm stuck. More Hendrik Potgieter. I can see what he saying. And a guy that used to live kwa Sebokeng, a colleague of mine that used to live kwa Sebokeng, on the other side of Johannesburg, drove all the way to basically work where he used to work and just sat there and Kemisa. He just waited with me while the AA came. The what do they call this thing? These vehicles that tow stuff away, that tow vehicles away. Yeah. It wasn't the AA, it was some other one, 4-in-1, I could say. I waited for them to come to take my car to the Mazda dealership and leave it there, and then the next morning I would go to the Mazda dealership and basically just check my car in to get a whole haul on brakes. I needed a change of brakes in my car. I could see why I was driving around while my car was going gee every time I dragged it along for too long, and my friend from work rocked up and he used the car instead of a motorcycle, because he used to have a motorbike. It would have been easier and faster for him to use a motorbike, but he used the car lest he would have needed to drop me off at home. If anything, he did take me home because my car was taken and then I was dropped off at home by him, and then he went back to Sebokeng where he stayed. So as like a motorcycle, that's what's good. Those are the kinds of men I had in my life. Collegial, friendly, good, caring, protective. Stayed like I have Ankemisa. coming all the way from the other side of the country, of the city, and he waited with me and then drove me back home. The next morning, I had to use, I don't know how in the world did I get to work the next day. I can't remember. I think a colleague picked me up or something that lived in my neighborhood type establishment thing. But those breaks, the bill came to something like 8,000 rands. And at the time, my ex-boyfriend was he was starting to make a few couple deals with business, trying to see if he can't raise some money up off the ground to get stuff done. And he was getting lucky here and there. I don't like the word lucky, but you get my point. He was gaining prosperity here and there with his business endeavors. Do you understand? And one time he managed to turn a profit of something like 10,000 rands on some small job. And instead of using that money to put it back into his business, he gave me 8,000 rand to fix my brakes. My ex at the time didn't even have a car yet. He only had a driver's license. He did not even put it down as a down payment on his own car. He gave me 8 grand and I was like, thanks babe, I'll pay you back. He was like, no, you don't have to. Those are the men that I had in my life. That's what humanity dwelt in the minds and hearts of people at some point in South Africa. Then I get born again. And now, I get offer 8,000 rand for mahala fella. You gotta give it back. There's gotta be something in it for me. I'm not gonna drive all the way from Spokane to sit around and feel like on the side of the street if there's nothing in it for me. Now today, it's like if there's nothing in it for me, no one can ever just help a damsel in freaking distress. So I just like a proper have got this like violence of cognitive dissonance from my countrymen, because the way I was never treated like that when I was lost. People were there for me. Do you understand? Whenever others dropped the ball, others pitched up, rocked up. There was a time when my car, I was trying, like, Karabo has this thing that she does. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Yeah, I could tell that something's wrong with my car, but I will drive it all the way to the very end. I've even been stuck before on petrol. Who rocked up for me? Ex-boyfriend didn't have his own car, called his boy who used to live in my neighborhood, and his boy rocked up and then and then ultimately petrol drove off. Ex was like, thanks boy, paid the friend, and I was now safe. I got to go home. That's what it is. That has been the case in point. So even when it's not your man but your man's boy, they pitch through for you, like having one another's back. I get what's in the black community, nonsense, them rubbish, just absolute nonsense, gobsmacking me. So there was a time when my vehicle from my complex I get home, I parked my car, for crying out loud. Yeah, I could tell that this thing kept on getting stuck. It kept on getting stuck. Though I got booster cabled at the office. At that stage, I should have just gone to the nearest car dealership or the nearest Midas and just bought a new battery. I was like, I'm gonna push this until month end. I gave it to he'll try to push it till month end. I got booster cabled at work that same day. Go home, park my vehicle, and when I get home, I'm now like out here in these streets trying to go to garage after coming home. So I'm home, and then I decide that I want to go to the garage. That's what's good, to go and buy chocolate or whatever. I'm like, snap, my car stuck. Again, status update on Facebook. Facebook in Jeffela was always my 911. I don't know. Someone please call 911. So it's like, someone please post a status update. Post a status update on Facebook. Yo, guys, what am I gonna do? Tomorrow I got work. I don't know any of my neighbors. They don't got booster cables. I then get a call from a friend of mine. Karabo, a female. I saw that your car's got issues. I've got jumper cables. I've got booster cables. Where do you stay? She had not yet known where it is that I stayed, because I stayed at that place and I was still new in that complex. I gave her my address. That same friend, we were friends, but we had not had a tight relationship for months. Yeah, despite that, she rocked up at my complex where I stayed, drove all the way from where she stayed, took herself out of her comfort zone, brought those booster cables, used her car started my vehicle. And well, I mean, upon starting my vehicle, that whole boosting of my car made me, I don't know if I went same time or what, but the next day I believe I finally got booster cables, because I saw what I'm taking it doesn't make sense. Essentially, I was even able to live dangerous on the edge. I was able to live on the edge of my seat. Do you understand? Because there was always somebody lurking in the corners, happy to rock up and make like Superman. That's what's good, be it female or males. I always got responded to whenever I was in dire straits, guys. People always pitched through for me in the same way I pitched through for people. God made sure that was a thing. And then I go and I get born again. and manje kutulile, booster cables go, you're gonna get stuck on the side of the road, you're gonna walk 2 kilometers to garage, ulotela petrol yourself. Oh, by the way, that day when I was stuck on reserves, go N14 coming back from work, yeah, the police, these 2 Afrikaans cops, like parked behind my car on some what Dunjay. What are you doing? Do you know this neighborhood? You will get raped. There's a problem with the blah blah blah. And they kept on giving me grief, and one of them kept on breaking out into Afrikaans, expecting me to understand. And those 2 Afrikaans cops chilled in their van, waiting for my boyfriend's friend to come with a scoop of petrol to put in my car. And then after, that friend of that guy rocked up until la petrol. The police only then at that stage left. They only left at that stage. That's how much God has always had my back. So South Africa, and I can't understand what's going on with this country. Like when they won the Rugby World Cup and I saw that camaraderie, I was like, yeah, that's all you have left. Celebration when we win the Rugby World Cup. But everything else you used to have, you lost it. You're like the guy Oweleng that used to be hot in high school, and now you like you're gathering dust just like Arabo in the Kasi with ashy knees, having nothing to your name anymore, and now the girls don't like you. Yeah, that's who you are now. When back in the day you were like the jock that everybody wanted to be with because you were like the rugby star on the school patch. That's who, yeah. South Africa, like a jock, there's no longer hot. Only Mokaba with a beer belly and 5 kids and a screaming baby mama that won't let him like get ease. And now he's just a mechanic. Yeah, like South Africa, like that. It's fallen. This country has given me so much trauma. I give my life to Christ, and then you act such a violent fool. So that random incendiary cousin, Batong, is already 21:01, like 1 minute past 9. I don't know if I'm gonna work out, but I have to. That incendiary cousin of mine that told me that I'm just bitter because my life is effed up, using the F word and everything. Yeah, well, she wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong. I was bitter, but I was pacified in my bitterness. I did not become a hurt person that ended up hurting people. Why? Because everybody else around her acted bitter. I gained justice. I wasn't bittered because she was treating me like trash, and my life had fallen apart because other people were irresponsible. My mom was irresponsible with my life. She had taken a genius daughter and just abandoned her to get eaten away, not away by the ravenous streets of Soweto. Is he dusty? Is he ashy? She allowed that to happen to me, even though she was in a position to help me along. But other people pulled through for me. Liberty Life pulled through for me. They saw my intellect, they saw my ingenuity, and they put me in the place that I needed to be. My cousin and her boyfriend pulled through for me. Everybody else that came through for me did. And so what did they do? They put pie on my cousin's face. Her little sister and the boyfriend put pie on her face. Liberty Life put pie on her face by acknowledging my intelligence. The country at large put pie on her face. The people who came and boosted my car when I was stuck on the side of the road, did not expect anything back from me, put pie on her face. The brothel, the pimp owners, the brothel owners, the pimps that made sure that a driver took me home, rather than insist that I go and I join the porn industry by treating me like the dignified woman that I rather was, put pie on her face. Other people that were in their sober minds, not prepared to call good evil and evil good, let the world be upside down, exchange bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Those people who still acknowledged that which is upright for being upright and that which is upside down for being upside down, even if they don't know God, just by mere virtue of walking in a common sense as a country, they put pie on the face of he who or she who is walking in a travesty, is walking in a disregard of what is right and what is wrong. Everybody else put pie on my cousin's face. And so my bitterness was pacified. And I brought her back into my life again after that. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I shouldn't have brought her back in. Years down the line, she taught herself witchcraft. Years down the line, I also got born again. And so now I was dealing with both witchcraft as a Christian. And so now, bitter is sweet and sweet is bitter. The world hates disciples. And now, Liberty Life doesn't want to look at me. Now her little sister and her boyfriend are not looking at me. Now my boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend, is not doing better by me when my car gets stuck. He's not out here giving me 10,000 rand lukisa di brake saka. My former friend, male friend from MTN, Onatokos booking, is not trying to drive, just to park behind my car, making sure that I am safe while the car towing company people do what they need to do, and then driving me home afterwards. My friend is not driving from her neighborhood in Remsach, coming to Honeydew where I stay to booster cable my vehicle because I put a status update on Facebook that my vehicle is takile ka battery. There was a time when my ex-boyfriend used money in my bank, in my petrol card, and when I went to the petrol station, I filled gas and couldn't pay. Some man saw my qualms, my issues, my problem, and paid my bill came to my window, knocked on some, what's your bill? When he saw that I was panicking all over the show, told him it's this much. He was like, it's fine, go home, I'll pay it. Didn't ask anything back from me. That was the South Africa that I grew up in. That's what I knew. Where people could be chivalrous for nothing. Like proper, nothing at all expected of them, and they did a better thing. It is the fact that that guy, Hasaleo, that is a travesty right now. It is the fact that I am being left to go, mina, nyosebenza 3 days at a petrol station just to pay for the gas tank that I filled when an ex-boyfriend of mine acted a fool and used my petrol card to fill up his own car without freaking telling me. That like random thing. It was in that level of decline of character that became the issue. It was the fact that that same cousin of mine that betrayed me when I was 20 years old, betrayed me again when I was almost 30. And everybody this time around insisted that she was right. They let her get away with murder even though she's been wrong all along. It is the fact that everybody is standing with her instead of me. It is the fact that I have got the same pimps working for the brothel now insisting that, goodness, you have no other place to go. So even though you're misplaced in this place, you're going to work for our brothel. If you don't want to, you're going to be broke for the rest of your days. It's the fact that companies in the country no longer want to interview me. They no longer want to hear what I have to say. They no longer want to give me a shot in the learnership so I can catapult again. It is the fact that nobody that used to do a better thing and so therefore put the wrong Barabbas in their place is doing it anymore. Essentially, this is like the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And everybody that has been wrong is Barabbas. And Barabbas is being set free. Free Barabbas. Free Barabbas. But crucify who? The Son of Man. Kill the person that is innocent in this regard. My innocence is stark before all. It is clear that I am innocent. That's what I'm trying to explain to you guys. And yet Barabbas is roaming these streets, rolling around. My cousin has always been wrong against me. Everybody knows that. She could never brittle it. But her sister turned it back from me. The sister's boyfriend, my own ex-boyfriend, like proper, some character flaws, went and stood with her. Everybody. And the dereliction of parental duties by my mother has always been a thing. But this time around, they're trying to make my mother look like she's always been responsible with me. Everything that I am trying to do to survive her dereliction of duties is not working because the whole country has erected barriers to entry against me. The whole country has made sure I don't survive, but they have allowed Barabbas to run free. Do you know why you're doing that, South Africa? It's because you're lukewarm. You're neither hot nor cold, and because you're lukewarm, God is spitting you out of his mouth. It is because you are Sardian. You have a reputation for being alive even though you are dead. South Africa, you have fallen away from your first love. You have considered bitter sweet and sweet bitter. You have exchanged good for evil. You have done an abominable thing. The Lord hates unjust scales. He hates the condemnation of the righteous and the acquittal of the wicked. But you have went on right ahead to make the observation that the wicked are being acquitted and the righteous are being condemned, and you're running with it. You are a judged land. That even though you might win the World Cup, and so everybody's happy for you got rugby, bottom line is all these other travesties all over the show can account for your power cuts. They can account for your gender-based violence. They can also account for the economy that is dwindling. They can account for tabayauri. You can't put a country back together with sticky tape. You need God. You need to turn your hearts over to God altogether, because what I am is a travesty. I am stuck on the side of the road with my vehicle having packed up for a myriad of reasons, and ain't nobody out here angtudisa while the towing company does what they do. Nobody is here waiting with me. And so therefore now I'm dying. Thank God, however, the suicide ideation that dwelt richly in my members when I was abandoned back then is no longer that rich, because I got Christ now. I recognize the word of God. I know I know the true scriptures. I know what Christ has to say about taking your own life, about not enduring to the end. So the thing that's keeping me alive is the thing that kept me alive back in the day. Fear of God. Same thing. Just that back then I wasn't even sure about God, but I didn't want to test it. This time around I'm positive about him. Yamazi, 100%. And in trying to avoid HIV, people are trying to give it to me anyway, when once upon a time I nearly killed myself out of fear of having it. And now here it is that men are literally trying to get me to a point where I will test positive because I will settle for some HIV positive guy. I'm being pursued by some buffoon beast from America that nobody is trying to brittle out here in these streets, because nobody anymore is happy to keep a virtuous woman virtuous, to a point of giving her a ride home when she mistakenly finds herself in a brothel. That is the country that I used to live in that is now dead. Do you understand? So yes, South Africa, I am bitter. Just as I was bitter in 2005. But I was pacified in my bitterness and was able to forgive and live a thriving life and jump, because justice was immediately served against she who made me bitter. Now, that which has made me bitter, you have lingered it, you have proliferated it, you have pontificated it, you have continued to like buxom its beef in the street, you have made it spread itself thin like a green laurel tree, and it is not disappearing any minute now. And because of that, I remain feisty. I remain effervescent for justice. I remain still out of my mind with fangs like a little cat, growling all over the show. Because I'm mad, I'm angry, I am upset, do you understand? Because no justice is being served. Barabbas is roaming these streets free. My cousin is being allowed to roam. All the people that have afflicted me. And what's worse, Hape, is that even the unfortunate lack of understanding of my mother as to how to treat a girl that is a gift, how to treat a child that is a gift, a protege. She might be basically like a netball player that can't catch balls, and so she's got butterfingers. She's got butterfingers where it comes to her kids. God gave her geniuses. She does not know how to take care of children or even identify children that are really gifted. Mind you, when a person basically is in the possession of a very gifted kid that doesn't get it, you know what tends to happen in a responsible society? Somebody spots that kid and is like, I'll take her. I'll teach her piano. I'll take her. I'll teach her guitar. I'll take her. I'll put her through school. I'll take her. I'll give her a scholarship. I'll take her. I'll employ her in my business. That's what happened with me. My mother had butterfingers and like I just slipped through her hand. But Liberty Life was like, I'll take her. My baby cousin was like, I'll love her because she's my cousin. Now, ain't nobody trying to do that. So I'm still bitter. I'm still angry because there's no justice. There's no justice. So do not come at me with a flying kick saying that my bitterness is the thing that makes me non-Christian. No, my bitterness is the thing that makes me grieved by the travesty of a lack of justice. And for as long as this is still going on, I'm gonna come here feisty with fangs trying to bite into anybody in the room because I'm obviously innocent and you are letting Barabbas go. I'm signing out in Christ's name, Kwenke. I hope you've been edified. Peace.